So good afternoon, everybody. I've got the afternoon slot. I hope you're all awake. It's a bit lighter, my presentation. I want to talk to you about what I've been up to for the past 10 years a little bit and how we've been using APIs. And I have got a pitch at the end. I definitely am after people who get excited about this to come and work with us and think about what to do. So my premise is this. Most people on Earth have never used the internet, either directly or indirectly. 60% are offline. That means that they might have a SIM card, they might have a feature phone, they probably take it to a shop to charge it once a week, they pay for it to be charged, and they have never been in a bank branch. That's the problem that I was facing. Why does financial inclusion matter, though? If you're living at the bottom of the pyramid, you haven't got sufficient income, you haven't got regular income, and so you're managing your money in a very different way to how you manage it in our world. And there's no mechanisms to deal with shocks. What happens when you get sick and your kids can't actually get fed today because you haven't been at work? But people are very clever. They don't manage money. They manage money very cleverly. They have like 14 different vehicles that they use to know exactly where their debts are and where they have assets themselves. They might have lent out to other people. People lend to each other very informally. It's a mathematical equation going on in people's heads. They're very clever with their money. And financial inclusion is about bringing solutions to these needs, to look at these particular pain points and actually finding solutions for these people. And actually, financial inclusion brings sustainable development goals. So if you look at poverty, by opening rural branches in areas with large unbanked populations, there's been a poverty drop. In Malawi, because of commitment savings products, there's been an increase in crop output. Who knew? In Kenya, we're providing people with a safe and formal place to store money, and it's increased savings by 65%. And in Nepal, their houses with free bank accounts are spending 20% more in education. And education is so important to this whole puzzle of lifting yourself out of poverty. So I was around at the start of something called Pesa. How many people in the room have heard of Pesa? Fantastic. I was at a technology company. We were what I like to call these days embedded but separate. We were part of Vodafone, but we were a separate team with corporate social responsibility budget and some differed budget. But we had all the benefits of being part of a big company, part of a big corporate at the same time. We had ins, we had relationships. But I think we were fintech at the same time. So the problem we were trying to solve was how do you move money reliably from one place to another place, physically apart, when there's no infrastructure, there's little banking systems, there's no cards, and there's cash. There's nothing else you can do. That's the problem we were trying to deal with. The takeaway is that, as you all know, most of you guys in the room know about M-Pesa, it's possible to design a scalable digital service for customers that only have a feature phone. That's the key takeaway. You have to look at what your customer wants, and you can deliver a scalable service. And it's still really important to have USSD, SMS, SDK-based services. What I mean by those are the telco APIs, if you like, because only 25% are yet on smartphones. Now, that's going to change, but there's more problems than just owning a smartphone. You have to power it. You have to have network. And you still need to think about those points of time when those are problems and it's people's cash. When you're living on $1 a day, $2 a day, having your money stuck in a system and go, oh, well, I'll use another card isn't really an option. You've got to really think about those pain points. So in 2005, we created our own full stack service. We had no bankers on the team at all. We created real-time money movement. You put a transaction through the system and you could withdraw it right away. There's no concept of next day settlement. We used user-led design. It wasn't called that in those days, but we were basically doing it. We were fully atomic. There was no repudiation in the system. It was fully end-to-end done in one moment. And we were based on SMS, encrypted SMS, fully secured through triple DES. And we were fully backed by a bank account. At the end of the day, the system was designed so that there was money in a bank account completely back in the service app. Today, we have 19 million customers, 80,000 agents. Agents are the touch points, how you get cash in and out of the system, the post office network, if you like, if you were in the UK. We have 6 million transactions daily, and we have a profitable business in Kenya. I don't work with Safaricom and the M-Pesa team directly anymore. I still say we because it's my baby. The key thing as well, though, is 89% of Kenyans are familiar with the service. They've gone from not knowing about banking and the benefits to actually having an account. 68% are frequently making payments in Kenya. And it's created an industry. Granted, not every market is as successful as Kenya have been, and there's lots of conversation about why and how, but actually I think APIs are a big part of creating the ecosystem and the next generation of traction and activity in the service. Because really we have seen that mobile money rails has enabled a broader ecosystem via integrations mostly, but in some cases APIs. So we have microfinance services, we have insurance, we have water services, energy services, health services, transportation services, and agri-services. A huge number of integrations. I'm talking about 3 in particular, and the key takeaways from this is the user-centric design principles, but it is a digital, scalable service. So first of all, Mshwari. It's our brand name for our digital savings product. The bank partnered with us. They completely trusted our KYC procedures for mobile money, and as such, the account gets opened instantly. The customer can be saving into that account within 5 minutes of actually wanting to open the account. There's an old face. On top of that, though, they can also request loans. And how do you guarantee the loan? Well, you don't guarantee the loan, but what they have is data. They're sharing data from the telco service across to the bank. They're providing information on how much the customer is spending on airtime, how many people they're calling, all kinds of data that is maybe you don't think about in the open data space. And this has kind of created an ecosystem. So beyond Mshwari, which was launched in 2012, I think, we've got all kinds of copycat products, but also extra products. We've got locks box services, we've got target savings, we've got group savings, we've got SME services, all kinds of things. There's a lovely story from one of the banks in Kenya. They looked at their data off the back of their digital loan service. And they spotted that they were getting a lot of loan requests at 4 a.m. And by 7 p.m., the loan was repaid with interest in full. Beautiful banking service, right? How much money can you make that way? They obviously asked their customers what was going on. It's traders, it's liquidity. If I can make money off the back of being lent money that day and enough money to pay my loan, then I can do it again the next day. And suddenly I'm getting a credit score and a credit history because I keep asking for loans and I keep repaying it. This has grown across Pan-Africa and probably Pan-Asia too. The loans are quite small, $10 to $50 amount. The borrower numbers are huge. But let's add a product on top of that. So this year, CGAP did a project where they researched the benefits of an interactive SMS, a chatbot in our terms, on top of this savings and loans product. So they created a learning platform on front. The customers could ask questions, and they launched it with farmers in rural Tanzania. The farmers actually thought they were talking to a person. They were talking to a machine and a set of questions that they could drive themselves. But the evidence is so compelling. For customers who learned through the platform, there was 5 times bigger savings. And not just savings, there were bigger loans dispersed and more money repaid. Education is such a wonderful thing, and the things that we can do with APIs to extend our customer experience are fantastic. So we've done agri-tech too. One of our partners in Kenya has bundled a service that makes it very easy for farmers to buy insurance for his crop at the time he buys his seeds. Location-based services are used to know where his farm and field is. The weather data is monitored to see if the crop will fail. And the payout decisions are made completely automatically with the disbursement happening back into the M-Pesa account. This was in, I think, 2010, 2011 that this was first piloted. Then we've got solar energy. So much of Africa is off-grid. I don't know if you've seen the maps of darkness. There's no energy, there's no electricity. And how do you do your school? How do you study for school if your house goes dark at 6:30 p.m.? You just lost so much time. And the effects of kerosene on the health, there's massive impact from not having electric light. So this solar entrepreneur company came out of the Sade Business School in England. It's got Pesa people behind it as well. But they basically figured out a way to reposition asset financing. They turned it into a pay-as-you-go concept, but the key thing is they want a loan repaid within 365 days. And they give you a couple of extra months at the end to make up the difference. But they turn your lights off if you're behind in your repayments so that you have a tie to the asset. They have an M2M system in place there. They have powered so many houses. These statistics are a little bit old, but they've got a massive repayment rate. They have, I think, now nearly 400,000 homes connected in 4 years. And it's a real success story. They're a business that's making money from solving a pain point in the industry. They have data. They're collecting data all the time from these devices in the field. So the customer service they can provide is a whole different echelon. And they're also providing that data to third parties on a partnership basis, not an open API basis, to look at how batteries are performing in this technology space. There's new credit scoring algorithms coming out. There's a business called First Access. They're New York-based, but they managed to get the data from Tanzania for lending and solutions to actually look at kind of spending patterns and actually give some feedback. So this is the kind of service they provide. Housing loan recommendations, village health insurance, whether they're eligible for credit on solar lamps, things like this. It's all very relevant. It's all very much focused at the products that our customers need. And I love this story. Hello, Tractor. We all talk about it's Uber for ... Well, we've got Uber for tractors. It's, again, asset financing. But how do you put people in touch with people who need farming services? There's not enough modern services in Africa. And the loans are too expensive for these tractors. You have to pay them back so fast. So this entrepreneur is figuring out a way to get more customers for the contractors and hopefully, therefore, a more reliable asset financing, hopefully a cheaper asset financing down the road. Any guesses what this picture is? This is an M-KOPA sales rep. He's up a tree. Any guesses why? He's got no phone signal. There's a SIM in that device that has to be activated before he can make the sale to the customer. He's got no signal coverage. He's trying to sell somewhere where there's a need for electricity, but there's no signal coverage in Ghana. This is the kind of situations we have to deal with in our market. The network reliability is not there. I've dealt with situations where digital products can really help financial inclusion, but mobile money is not always the answer, and you have to design for resilience. You can't assume the online connectivity of our world. Thankfully, M-Pesa are dealing with this, and M-KOPA are dealing with this issue, and they're creating back-off services. Another issue we have is look at the size of these transactions. $32 is the average cash out, $29 average cash in, merchant payments $26, disbursement $52, bill payment $20. Do they sound like bottom of the pyramid transactions to you? That's our problem at CGAP. We want to really look at the business models around this, and there's a reason why the numbers are this space. Our business is a money transfer business in Pesa. We are not a bank. The business is based around transaction fees. So how do we disrupt the business model of transaction fees, pay-as-you-go, which has worked really well in certain situations, but really we want to drive these transactions lower, get more activity on the systems, and then hopefully more financial inclusion. The numbers here don't include the savings products and the fact that you can do those for free and you move things around in much more smaller denominations. Also, you can see that the airtime top-up is effectively free. You're buying a service, and so obviously the transaction value is much lower. It doesn't also show the granularity in some of the bill payment services. They are cheaper, but as soon as you make it more affordable, more activity happens. So that's why we need to disrupt business models. And we think that APIs can enable more innovation and hopefully more things to happen, open APIs. Because all these things I talked about are wonderful innovations. They are based on people really pushing to get access to things. We don't have open APIs, but we have APIs, SOAP, mostly, if we're lucky. And we have heavy VPNs. We have heavy IP whitelisting protocols, all kinds of things. Sound very familiar, right? We want to push further. So I work with CGAP, and my colleague Javier is here as well. This is our agenda at CGAP. We want to see innovative services. We want to improve the lives of the poor through these innovative services. And we have strategic focus areas. We work with low vulnerable segments. We guide donors and investors. We have a global agenda for knowledge. The CGAP blog, before I came to work with CGAP directly, was the source of so much understanding for me on my customer pain points. They do such good research in this space of really understanding what's going on. We promote policy. We work on converging conversations and best practice. And from that perspective, this is why we're heading into a new project, which is about an open API agenda, helping our digital finance service providers in Africa, which are both banks and mobile money companies and anybody else who's providing asset financing kind of services, to really think about why open APIs are important. How do we talk about them? The kind of things we've been doing here, that's such gold dust for me, right? This is wonderful stuff that's happening here. We want to help them work out a framework to map the space of their applications and start to look at some of the business model implications. We want to run some projects. We want to make things real because I think I've heard a lot that actually the more that you do, the more you'll learn along the way. So we want to do some projects and make some learning along the way. My hypothesis at the moment is that there's so much similarity. What can we bring? I'm hoping that we can bring quite a lot, but let's find the differences. Let's find them quickly and let's educate the rest rather than having to reinvent the wheel. That's our agenda. And my last final pitch to you guys is if you are interested in learning more, staying close to the project, or you can bring some experience that would be part of this dialogue or the project implementations, there are going to be RFPs, expressions of interest. There's going to be conference events like this. And we'd love to get closer to the community who are building and doing. And that's me.
That was fantastic. Some really great examples there in all of what you're working on. Any questions? Yep. Great.
Just very quick, have you looked at Latin America at all?
I personally have. I'm not sure if CGAP... Do you want to speak, Javier? I've done some work as a startup in Latin America, and it's really hard as a startup, and it's a different banking environment. But Javier, I think you should speak.
Yeah, no, what I would say is that obviously Latin America has very interesting things going on. A lot of what we presented here is our business models and our innovations that are mainly seen in Africa and in Asia, because Latin America has different market structure. The banks are a lot more present. Most markets would be similar to more developed countries, and the way these innovations work has been a lot more difficult for those innovations to happen because of competition with other payments instruments. So things are not happening exactly the same way. And we see many of these innovations in Africa and Asia having a lot more potential to reach poor people.
I think there are different needs as well. I mean, the electricity needs in Latin America are quite different. The problem space is really quite different. I was a startup trying to launch a mobile money service with an independent provider in Mexico, Colombia. Oh, the regulations, right? It's really hard to be a fintech startup and launch in a market like that without having a bank in your back pocket who really want to do it with you. But I have worked with Millicom, Tigo, in El Salvador, in Honduras, Paraguay, all these places. They're really trying hard, and they're doing some really nice stuff with apps in a way that we haven't got into the app space really, really, really well in Africa yet. It's happening, but I think that the Latin guys are stronger on the app space.
Is that partly because of I think you showed 20%, 25%
Yeah,
penetration
I think so.
for the smartphone. So is that because the smartphone is higher penetration at the moment?
You start from a different place,
Right.
Absolutely. And as a startup as well, though, what I always find was everybody wants mobile money, and then they want their own version of it. They say they want mobile money, but it's not what M-Pesa has. And that's entirely right, which is why we built a platform business in our startup. On water under the bridge and all that. I'm trying to find the right slide that you just mentioned. Exactly that, though.
Yeah.
People have different needs, different services they want, and the penetration in North America, South and Western is very different. LATAM's not on there, but it is higher. I believe it is higher in LATAM.
We have another question here.
Yeah, hi. In terms of your projects, how are they actually funded? So considering majority of what you showed are from like developing countries, is it like government aided? Is there a charity stream? I mean,
Okay.
I like the work ethic. I'm just trying
Yeah.
to figure out how it's all funded.
So M-Pesa started from some kickstart from DFID, and the rest of it is commercial. It's a commercial business. It took a while to make money, but it is making money. When you go into a model like Mshwari, that was a revenue share model, and with the bank, and there was a negotiation, all the rest of it. Yeah. A lot of mobile money providers are struggling. They've copied the M-Pesa model, but they haven't got the activity rates that mean they're in profit. But a lot of them are self-funding as telcos, which means there isn't a lot of money. It's the ugly sister, right? Because there's not a lot of money around, and you have to give it to this, and this isn't making money. It's an issue. But look, there are lots of funders out there who are really interested in this space. So CGAP is funded by the Gates Foundation. Gates Foundation fund quite a lot of this work because Bill will talk a lot online about the benefits of electricity. He'll talk about the benefits of solar energy. He'll talk about renewables. He'll talk about the fact that financial inclusion is really, really important for lifting people out of poverty. And so there's more donors than that. There's the MasterCard Foundation. There's various entities who are quite often seeding a startup, a fintech style startup, or they're taking a business that's got a bit of traction and they're trying to get them to scale. Some successes, some not. So for example, the little example I gave of the chatbot on front of the thing, that is a CGAP funded project where they ran the research, and it was developed by the CGAP team in combination with Arufu and Power, the banking product. So lots of little experiments that get run and get funded. But at the end of the day, it's a commercial business, and they have to make money. Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thanks. But actually, we'll take that last question. We've got one down the back.
Didn't mean to make you run. Hi, I was just wondering on your, it's really interesting, thank you for the presentation. On your concentric circles of how innovation is creating new innovation, how do you create that ecosystem? How do you put these entrepreneurs inside of each other so they can build on top of what already exists?
I think in our space we got very lucky. I think it's quite hard. M-Pesa came from a little bit of vision from Nick Hughes. And he got a separate budget so he could run a separate technology project, but us being inside really helped. In terms of COPA, the energy one, who's behind it? Nick Hughes, who's very well connected and can get connectivity to the telcos to make these APIs happen for the first time. You'll see a lot of these success stories are because of the relationships or because there is a revenue share model that makes sense and there's a business model and all the rest of it. So getting small entrepreneurs to a stage where they can take an idea forwards, it's hard, right? It's really hard. And that's where our open API agenda is trying to make that easier for small scale entrepreneurs to do things. Whether we succeed or not, I hope so. And we want to learn from what's happening here.